Welcome again to Sam Armstrong. These farmers' protests, we spoke to a couple of farmers a little bit earlier. Nick Ellaby, we're going to go back to him in a moment. He's our talk correspondent. He's live at the scene. There's no doubt at all there's an awful lot of support for farmers. Why do you think that is? Because I can remember like the days of, the Countryside Alliance and the hunting protests and things. I mean, not many townies came out for them then, but people are now.
Well, look, I do think Jeremy Clarkson has played a factor in this. I think people have begun to see the essential role that these people that get up out of bed at 4, 3, 5 o'clock in the morning and go to work doing difficult job to put food on our table.
Who'd get up at 4 in the morning and go to work?
Well, look,
I mean, it's horrible. I mean, genuinely, and I wasn't doing it in the rain. I was doing it in an office.
In the depths of winter, in the freezing cold, come rain, come snow. Look, there's no days off for Christmas. The cows need feeding, the sheep need moving, all of that stuff. You have to do it.
You know all the farming terminology.
Well, look, I've been sent out to go de-ice the sheep's water troughs on a Christmas morning before now. I've done it before. I'll do it again. And look, it matters. And I'll tell you why it matters, Julia, because when you walk around the countryside, when you take a train through or drive through and you just see something beautiful, you see a network of hedges, you see green fields.
Oh, they look lovely.
Doesn't it look lovely?
It's sort of Marie Antoinette-style farming.
Precisely. Let me tell you why those are there. That hedge is there because the grandfather of the person who is there now decided to plant it. He planted it and he did it right. He did the job right in a way that he was told how to do by his grandfather. That knowledge was passed down again and again and again. That is a beautiful way of running that unique landscape. It's the best way. It's a way that's been learned over literally a millennia.
And those are skills that you could read a book, but it's not the same as doing it and seeing it and doing it over the years and realising the nuances of the weather and
why do they do it? They do it because their grandfather taught it to them and their father relied on them to help them, and they want their son.
Quite a few women involved as well, by the way.
And they want their son or their daughter, and they want their grandson or their granddaughter to do the same. And there is a common thread, a golden thread running through the history of the British countryside, which is that family link, family farms of people doing things, of planting trees under which they will never see the shadow, they will never rest on the hot day themselves, but they know those that come after them will do. And what this Labour government is doing is severing that golden thread. It will do permanent, irreparable damages. It will be the equivalent to Henry VIII's dissolution of the monasteries. It will be like the poor laws. It will break a chain that has gone on for centuries.
Elon Musk, who is putting his tuppence worth in on not just American politics but British politics, he's been siding with Alison Pearson, the Telegraph columnist we interviewed last week, obviously about her being questioned by the police over a supposed hate crime. But he's launched an attack on this government. He's criticised Keir Starmer before over basically imposing on our freedoms of speech. But he said that Britain is going full Stalin over this inheritance tax raid on farmers. This after the former editor of The Observer, Will Hutton, defended the policy of the tax rise, claiming it would cause the price of farmland to fall, allowing a younger generation to own land. Now,
it is Stalinesque.
But it is. This is the thing. This is obviously the 1930s. They had collectivisation. Basically, all the kulaks used to own the land, and of course they were all killed off in the revolution. And they basically had forced redistribution of farmland. Like, farmland's all in the hands of these people. But again, the very, very rich. There are some very wealthy aristocratic landowners. They're big, big houses, and we sort of, read about them in Jane Austen novels and things like that. And they own a load of land, and they'll be just fine. Their land is in trust. It's going to hand down to a generation. No one's paying inheritance tax. The very rich don't pay inheritance tax. Just so you know, they don't pay it. And then that's all going to be handed down. And the big super duper corporations, they'll be fine too. But and yes, we do have a lot of people now who've got a load of money. They're buying up land, and they want to use it as a way of offsetting their inheritance tax, and there is a way of doing it. Now, you can have a system which means you don't allow those people to escape inheritance tax. Well, if most of your income ain't from your farming and you've only just bought the farm 4 years ago, I think we can find a way of getting around that. You don't escape this tax, but the point is that the vast majority of farmers, according to the National Farmers Union, and again, Department for Energy, the Treasury, and the farmers union, no one could agree on how many farmers are actually impacted by this. And with the rate of inflation, land inflation especially, I guess more and more are. But it could be, up to 2/3 of land is affected. Now, given that 55% of our food in this country comes from farming in this country, we rely on the dairy farmers, on the cattle farmers, on the pig farmers, on the sheep farmers. We rely on the ones who grow our wheat, grow everything else. we would not survive without those farms. And if those farms go under because they have to sell their farmland, we're in a whole heap of slurry.
Yeah, well, look, let's go back to Stalin. What did Stalin do? He came in, he pretended that there were all these very wealthy people that were ripping off the ordinary worker who had all of this land. He unreasonably persecuted them. He pushed them off the land, and they repurposed that land over to other people, to their socialist enterprises. And where did it end?
Yeah.
The single greatest death of the Russian and Ukrainian people of all time. Grotesque famine. People starving to death. Now, look, I'm not saying it's going to be that bad.
Of course,
no, it's not. But it is going to end in the same way, which is a similar way, which is much, much less food being produced in this country, land going, frankly, to waste. There's no point restoring a great field that you're never going to see a return in not just this generation, but the next generation, but maybe you would in the generation after that if you're not going to be able to hold it. So we're going to be importing more. It's going to be produced to lower environmental standards. It's going to be worse for our economy. We're going to be sending more and more of our money overseas. Our balance of trade is going to go worse. And the economy is just going to continue to suffer. And it's just a pure policy of managed decline. It's honestly the thing that has most reminded me about the 1970s in this government.
Oh, yeah. Well, some of us are old enough to remember it. You mentioned Ukraine there, and Ukraine very much in the news. And again, I think what happened with the Russian invasion of Ukraine 1,000 days ago today, 1,000 days ago, we saw that immediate impact, not just on oil revenue, on oil prices and gas prices because of the sanctions as a result, but also on wheat prices, on fertiliser, which impacted everybody, sunflower, some of the basics of our agriculture, of our diet, and not just here in Europe, but also in Northern North Africa, in the Middle East. Huge number of countries reliant on what was always called the breadbasket of Europe, Ukraine, in terms of their production, not just the production, but the ability to get it out and ship it out of Ukraine. That had a massive impact on our food prices and everything we bought. Has that not taught us that we need to have not just secure, reliable, safe and affordable fuel and energy, but also food supplies? This is so basic. I mean, we've got this ramping up of the war in Ukraine at the time when Donald Trump says he could end it in a day. We'll see what happens after the inauguration on January the 20th. But in the last few days, we have seen Joe Biden say he's going to give permission for these long-range missiles to be fired. They're already within Ukraine, but to be fired from Ukraine into Russian territory, helping them to protect against Russian supply lines, but also to protect the territory they've grabbed around Kursk. We've also now, the reports today are suggesting some of those missiles may have been used. French and British missiles, the Storm Shadow, may well be being used as well. I would certainly expect that, would want that myself. But we had a threat back from Russia, from Vladimir Putin. He's signed a new law allowing him, in reaction to a long-range missile being fired into Russia, to use nuclear weapons. Now, there's a whole variety of nuclear weapons. We always think Hiroshima. That's not the only option. But he's talked about a tangible response from Russia. How scared should we be of Third World War?
Well, look, very scared, not only for the military reasons, but look, if this war escalates, and there is every chance that it could, we could see, if nuclear weapons are used in Ukraine, all of that grain that we basically rely on to feed half of the European continent disappears overnight. Yeah. Gas prices continue to go through the roof. And if that isn't a lesson, as you say, nothing ever will be. Look, I always look at the difference between the United States and us here in Europe here, right? The United States has not seen energy prices go through the roof. Why?
They've gone up a bit, but they've seen nothing like.
But what is the single biggest factor in that? They have their own domestic supply of gas, oil, energy, right? If you want to be secure in an increasingly dangerous world, you have to be energy independent, food independent, secure. And the progressive woke mind virus ideology, I apologise for putting in those terms, doesn't get it. No. What do they want to do? They want to destroy the North Sea oil and gas industry so that we import all of our energy from dictators and despots like Saudi Arabia or Russia.
Well, Ed Miliband said he didn't want to do this, and it was terrible, but actually we get most of our fuel now. Our liquefied natural gas, which has replaced all of what was available otherwise from our own supplies, and some we did import from Europe, that's all coming from America. Well, lucky us that America is actually producing that oil and gas and is now the biggest supplier of both.
And what does he want to replace it with? Solar panels. Made where? Oh, yes, China.
It's genuinely painful. I don't know how anybody, we talk about this a lot on the show, but I don't know how anybody who is remotely paying attention, who knows, if you know 3 facts about how the world works and energy and food, you wouldn't support any of these policies. We are going to rue the day. This government is going to break us. I knew they'd be bad. I knew they would be bad. Your lot were rubbish. They were useless. They deserved to be booted out. I knew this lot were going to be bad. And I knew that it didn't matter how I voted. I knew that we were going to end up with a Labour government. I had no idea they would be this bad. They are so wrong about everything. Everything. It is paralysingly painful to sit and watch. But I wonder whether, they don't really do facts, because it would appear, see what I did there, Rachel Reeves might have told a few porkies on her CV. I don't know. I didn't work with her at Halifax or Bank of Scotland. I didn't work with her at the Bank of England. I have no idea which did. I know I didn't play chess against her as a child prodigy playing. I'm not very good at chess, to be fair. Much better at drafts. Very good at poker, though. But it is extraordinary that so many things that we were told about her, child prodigy in chess, Bank of England economist for years, economist in HMS, that she had this amazing CV. So shouldn't we trust her as the Labour Chancellor? First woman, apparently. Apparently we're supposed to care about that as well. And big question marks about her CV, because people who were, basically senior to her saying that wasn't her job. She wasn't an economist. She was in admin. That she wasn't there for 10 years. She was there for 6 years. Things like that. She never won a child prodigy, child chess championship. She came sort of something like 29th. Very impressive, but nevertheless different from winning. These porcupines, I'm going to be careful. These claims about her have been around. Some of them she's propagated herself. Some of them she's happily had on her literature as standing as an MP, been pushed by her boss, the Prime Minister. It would appear that they're not true. Now, has she got the job under false pretences? Has she been elected under false pretences? Downing Street has refused to say whether Rachel Reeves broke the ministerial code. If Boris Johnson did this, and that is a man who lies 10 times before pouring a bowl of Kellogg's in the morning, if Boris Johnson would be hounded every day over this, and quite rightly, Rachel Reeves will just keep quiet about it. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, there's a profound lack of curiosity about this story from the mainstream media. It relied on Guido Fawkes, an online blog which we both love, but it's got 3 reporters to break this story, while the BBC, which employs hundreds, sat idly by. And it's bizarre, because this should be, and if it was the Tories, we would be seeing headline news day after day after day. And it matters. Why does it matter? Well, because this woman, in my view, has an honesty problem.
Yep.
Like, I don't frankly care too much about the fact that she started off lying about the fact that she won these chess competitions, or even about her CV. But what I do care about is when you solemn promise again and again and again and again to the British public that, look, trust us. I know we mucked it up last time, but trust us this time. It will be different. Look me in the eyes. I'll tell you, if you put us in, we're not going to put up the taxes on working people. And then within days starts unpicking that promise, breaking it, squeezing the British taxpayer to the pits.
People, come on. Farmers aren't working people. Don't be silly. They don't do anything. They're
Farmers aren't working people. Pensioners aren't working people.
Well,
people who get the bus aren't working people. People who work in supermarkets aren't working
that's the
people.
thing. We've had retailers.
But Rachel Reeves, on a £170,000 salary, I'm a working person. Come on, Julia.
We've also had today, again, all these tax rises. There were going to be tax rises. We know the Tories would have put up taxes. Everyone would put up taxes. And that is the problem. High street jobs losses are inevitable. Prices are going to rise. Shops are going to close. And jobs are going to be lost as a result of the tax rises, and the budget are hitting retail. We've had a warning. Huge number of retailers. Tesco, Amazon, Greggs, Next, Aldi, Asda, Boots, Currys, Lidl, Marks and Sparks, Primark, Sainsbury's. They have a charity shop group, the British Heart Foundation, the Associated Independent Stores representing independent traders. All of them have signed this letter basically saying, look, you've put up national minimum wage. OK, we want people to be able to have a decent wage and everything, but at the same time as putting up national insurance for employers on every job, and huge energy cost increases, and a bunch of other taxes going up. They simply cannot afford to make ends meet. They're going to be cutting jobs, cutting back, and our prices are going to go up. And again, we're going to have that spiral of inflation. So even if people's wages do go up, but, you know, train drivers or doctors or anyone else, your wages go up. But if prices go up by the same amount, you haven't had a pay rise, you've stuck the same.
Yeah, and look, by the way, they're also changing the law to make it impossible for employers to sack new employees that you hire and then they turn out they're rubbish within the first few months. And the result is going to be this, right? Which is, if you're a major employer, you're simply not going to take staff on as staff. What you're going to do is you're going to say, come on as a freelance contractor, you're on a precarious contract, I just can't take the risk as an employer. And what you're going to see is workers actually end up with a worse deal than they would have done if the government had stuck to reasonable regulation in the first place. And this is time and time again what Labour governments do, right? They don't get how business works, they don't understand it, they frankly don't like it, and so they muck around with it to progress some strange left-wing ideal, and what do? They end up making everything worse.
Well, you've got to remember, this is a Chancellor. She doesn't even know where she worked, what her job was, and how long she was there. So I don't know how she's able to work around everyone else's jobs. But